For years, he was hailed a hero. For some, he still is. Now he's exposed. Here's the history of the Ukraine, and Volodymyr Zelenskyy you won't hear from the mainstream media. Zelenskyy has never had the cards. He isn't some brave leader calling the shots. He's a desperate man, clinging to power in a collapsing regime, propped up by Western money, weapons, and propaganda, and with Ukraine losing the PR war and real war, he's panicking. Ukraine and Russia have been bound together for over 1,000 years. Kiev, Ukraine's capital, once the heart of Kievan Rus, the first great Slavic state, laid the foundations for Russia itself. Ukraine's very name means borderland, which means the borderland of Russia. For centuries, it was an integral part of the Russian Empire, not some oppressed nation. Even during the Soviet era, Ukraine wasn't occupied. It was central to the USSR. Even Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev was Ukrainian. When the USSR collapsed, Ukraine became independent and Washington stepped in, not to help Ukraine, but to weaponize it against Russia. The US and NATO lied to Gorbachev, promising they wouldn't expand 1 inch eastward. Yet NATO moved into Poland and the Baltic states. Ukraine was the ultimate NATO prize. The West poured billions into Ukraine, funding pro-NATO political groups, NGOs, and media to manufacture an anti-Russian state. In 2004, the CIA backed the Orange Revolution, overturning an election that favored a pro-Russian candidate. The real coup came in 2014. Ukraine's democratically elected president, Viktor Yanukovych, rejected an EU trade deal that would have destroyed Ukraine's economy. That was unacceptable to Washington, so they removed him via a manufactured color revolution. The so-called Maidan Revolution wasn't a grassroots movement. It was a CIA-backed coup, orchestrated by officials like Victoria Nuland. So brazen was Washington that Nuland was even caught on a leaked call, hand-picking Ukraine's next leader before Yanukovych was gone. The violent mobs that took over Kiev weren't peaceful protesters. They were led by neo-Nazi groups like Azov Battalion, groups that openly celebrate Nazi collaborators and wear SS insignia. These same groups now receive Western weapons. The post-coup regime then banned the Russian language, directly attacking millions of Russian-speaking Ukrainians in the east. That's when Donbass and Crimea said enough. Crimea held a referendum. Over 90% voted to return to Russia. The Donbass also voted for independence. The people of the Donbass rejected Kiev, but Kiev wouldn't let them go. Instead, they launched a brutal war on their own people, shelling civilians for 8 years. Where was the Western outrage? Nowhere. And what about Zelenskyy? Who is he? Is he an organic leader who came from nowhere, or was he installed? Covert Action reported that in 2020, Zelenskyy secretly met with MI6 head Richard Moore. Why would a foreign president meet with the UK's top spy instead of its PM? Is Zelenskyy a UK asset? According to reports, he is personally protected by British, not Ukrainian security. When he visited the Vatican, he snubbed the Pope and met with a British bishop. Guess who else was there? Richard Moore from MI6. Again. That's some coincidence. Before politics, Zelenskyy was a comedian and actor, literally playing the president on a TV show. Then, with the help of Western PR teams, fiction became reality. His campaign was funded by oligarch Ihor Kolomoisky, who owned Ukraine's largest oil company and bank. Once in power, Zelenskyy's priority wasn't fighting corruption. It was making sure BlackRock and Western banks took over Ukraine's economy. Meanwhile, he funneled millions into offshore accounts, and is alleged to have acquired a $34 million mansion in Miami as well as a multi-million-pound London apartment. Nothing would surprise me if he did. By 2022, NATO had armed Ukraine to the teeth, and Kiev had amassed forces near Donbass. Russia had a choice. Let Donbass face ethnic cleansing. Let NATO turn Ukraine into a military base, or intervene. They intervened, just as other nations would in those circumstances. The media screamed unprovoked invasion, but NATO expansion, the 2014 coup, 8 years of war on Donbass. This war was provoked every step of the way. Ukraine was set up as a pawn. With Ukraine losing, Zelenskyy is being abandoned. Donald Trump told him, "You don't have the cards." And he's right. This war was engineered. Ukraine needed Western intervention to win, and that would mean that World War III would be inevitable. It's time the world wakes up to that reality. The war in Ukraine was deliberately provoked by the West. Zelenskyy is just another puppet. His time is running out. And Trump knows that. The question is, do you see the truth now? Or do you still see him as a hero? Like, share, and subscribe for more.